music and we'll get into it. Hello out there. This is Brian Peterson on Old Bodies Outside, and today I am super honored and grateful to have Mike McKnight here. He is a legendary ultra runner and has accolades and accomplishments that are vast. Also, he is a coach and loves helping runners. And you can check out his website at lowcarb-runner.com. And before we get started, I did want to highlight a couple of his major career accomplishments. First one being setting the supported fastest known time on the Colorado Trail, which is about 567 miles. And you can check out his record on YouTube. The video is titled From Broken to Breaking, the Colorado Trail FKT. And I highly recommend it. Me and my family watched it about a year ago and just loved the video, felt super inspired. And the video resonates so strong with me that today I'm actually going to conclude the episode with playing the first minute 30 or so of that video. Another highlight of Mike's career is that within a 3-month span, he won the Tahoe 200 miler, the Bigfoot 200 miler, and the Moab 240 miler. Just incredible. On this episode, we're going to learn more about Mike, but we're going to specifically focus on his mental fortitude and how he is resilient and just always bouncing back and overcoming these magnificently big challenges. And so today, I wanted to start off this conversation with Mike, hearing about his childhood and his athletic endeavors during that time.
Hi.
Welcome to the show, Mike. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you doing?
Doing good. So you're out in Arizona right now?
No, actually. I guess, yeah. When we talked, I said that's where I was going to be. So I was supposed to go there to do a race and to escape the cold. I live in northern Utah. But me and my wife realized that we're just going to be traveling a lot next year for my races. And I'm still trying to recover from my most recent FKT attempt. And so I decided to back out of the race, and we decided just to kind of have a staycation and enjoy not traveling while we can.
Yeah.
So no,
excellent.
I'm up in northern Utah right now.
Okay. Are you in the Logan area?
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. That FKT that you did, I thought that was the coolest concept, doing the duel with Ben Light. And I think you're mentioning the Arizona Trail FKT, right?
Correct.
That attempt. Yeah, I love the dual nature of it. And I was a high school cross country runner. And one of the things that we did in high school cross country is we'd have dual meets. So my high school would specifically take on another high school and see how it shakes out. And bringing that to the ultra running community, I've never seen that at all in ultra running. I thought it was just a brilliant concept and something that highlights the sport and shows the excitement for the sport, and also just, furthering human accomplishments and doing something big like that. And in terms of, talking about the FKTs right now a little bit, do you have some FKTs on your mind for 2023?
Yep. I'm going to go back to try to get the Arizona Trail.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah.
And are you, and when is that going to happen?
March or April, which is a big reason that I backed out of the race this week, just because that's like 3 months away. So it's actually right around the corner again.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's starting to really ramp up that training for that. That's awesome. Well, congrats on getting back after that. That's just got to be a very beautiful trail. I know it crosses the Grand Canyon. It goes all the way down to Mexico. And how many miles total is that?
I've seen like 3 different things, but it's approximately 800 miles.
Okay, 800
I've
miles.
seen like 780. I've seen like 815. So I just say 800.
Yeah, I've seen that 780 a bunch. For those of you listening that aren't familiar with the Arizona Trail, it spans from the border of Arizona and Mexico and goes northbound all the way to the border of Arizona and Utah, and just goes through some very rugged and challenging terrain. It's definitely going to be just a big, awesome accomplishment that Mike is getting after. So I think it's really cool.
Thanks.
What else do you have after that? That's only in March. I'm sure you got a summer packed schedule.
Yeah. So after that, so I'm on the wait list for Western States. I'm like 70 or something. And historically, that's not that promising of getting in, but for the past 2 years, they've exhausted the wait list. I'm guessing because of COVID. So I feel like that's kind of iffy this year where things are starting to open back up again. Like, I don't know if I'm actually going to get in. So I'm just going to train and plan for Western. And then if I don't get in, there's a new 100 up in Montana that I want to go do called the Crazy Mountain 100. And then so either Western States, Crazy Mountain 100, or the Tahoe 200. They're all about the same time frame. Then after that, I'm going to go do PTL in Europe. And then after that, there's a new 200 in Canada that I'm going to go do. Wow. And then after that, probably Moab 200.
Okay. And have you been mapping out a route in Utah that I saw something on Instagram where it's like got, 20,000 feet of gain in the first 50 miles?
Yep.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Me and Ben Light and another buddy started a company called Great Western Adventures.
Cool.
And it's basically what it is we're going to make a bunch of races and run retreats up in this area utilizing the Great Western Trail or sections of the Great Western Trail. But yeah, the first thing that we're working on is a 200 here in Logan, and just working with the Forest Service to get everything approved, and hopefully 2024 will be the inaugural year of it.
Okay. How is that planning process with the Forest Service? Is it pretty slow and difficult, or because I know it's a big bureaucratic, place, and I do some work with the U.S. Forest Service and stuff. Tends to move a little bit slow because it's such a big agency. Is that how it is for you?
Yeah, yeah. We originally hoped for 2023, but there's no way that's going to happen now.
Okay.
But yeah, it's looking good though. We're pretty hopeful about it. We're planning next year doing like a run retreat up in the area where we're going to go out on the course, and probably a bunch of people that I coach will come out, and we'll do like trail maintenance and make some promo videos, some marketing materials, and then, aim for that to be 2024 for the actual year that it happens.
Nice. Well, that's great that you'll be doing some trail maintenance as well.
Yeah.
That is, do you have a name for it?
Yeah. So there used to be, up in this area, there was an old bear called Old Ephraim. And we have like a monument up in the mountains for him. But like when he like stood up on his hind legs, like I think he was like 9 to 11 feet tall or something like that.
Wow.
Like, he was a big bear. And so, yeah, we're going to call it the Old Ephraim 200. We're trying to figure out like which way we're going to do it. So either the first aid station or the last aid station is going to be at the monument at the Old Ephraim grave.
Cool.
But yeah, the logo is going to be epic. Like this big bear just kind of overshadowing this puny runner, like looking up at it. I'm pretty excited about it.
Yeah, that's a great logo. I mean, I feel like I always have a bear looking over me during races and, weighing heavily on my shoulders. So I feel like it's a great logo, plus just kind of a metaphor for all the lows and highs in a race that we all deal with. So I want to go back to being on a wait list. I'm actually dealing with that myself, and I'm on a wait list, and I'm like, gosh, like, I don't know. And I feel like my odds aren't probable. I actually emailed the RD of the race and was like, are my odds probable? And he said no. And so at this point, I'm not going to I'm going to take the risk and not focus my training for that race. And in fact, I was like, you know what, a buddy hit me up to pace at the race. I'm just going to focus on pacing at the race. But I guess I'll be there if my name does get called. But these wait lists they're needed, they're necessary. But man, when you're on them, it's a bit like a lot of anxiety for me. Yeah.
Which race is it?
It's for Hard Rock, and I've been trying forever to get into Hard Rock. Like it's like I'm not as deep, not that deep. I'm about 24th. But they said on average they get to only about 10 deep each year.
Yeah, there was one year I went out there. I used to work in marketing for Ultra footwear, and we were, I think they still might be, but the title sponsor or the shoe sponsor of Hard Rock. And so I used to go out there all the time. But there was one year I went out there and a guy showed up. He was number 1 on the wait list, and he just showed up hoping to get in, but no one dropped out that year, so he did not get in.
Wow. Yeah. So that's a great example right there. Yeah. So
yeah,
I don't think my chances are too high. I was thinking about putting my name in for the lottery for the week later, High Lonesome West. But I decided not to do that. And last night I pulled the trigger on registering for Run Rabbit Run.
Oh, nice. That's a good race.
Yeah. I've never done it. It's so I'm currently living in Kansas right now, and I used to live in Utah. And Run Rabbit Run is a race that's actually within driving distance of me. It's just kind of a straight shot to the west,
Oh,
very easy
nice.
to get to for me. And so, pulled the trigger on that last night, and now it's time to get into some of the planning and whatnot. One of the things that probably a lot of runners would be opposed to. But I like to run a 50 miler about 2 weeks out from my 100-mile races. And so that's part of my
Oh,
planning process is trying to find a 50 miler. Yeah, exactly. So it's, I'm a kind of I don't take tapering too hard, I guess you could say. Like I don't know what direction you call it, but I have maybe a less severe taper than what other people feel is best for themselves. And I feel like it's best for myself. And that's kind of how it goes with running, right? Finding out what's
right.
best for our individual self. Yeah.
Just curious why. Yeah, I'm just curious, but like, why a 50 miler instead of like a 50K or a marathon or something? Like, what led you to that distance?
Yeah. Yeah, I would say two reasons. First one is I've had very good luck doing that with other past 100-mile races. So that would be, so I have precedence with doing that. It's resulted very well. I've had very good performances in my 100-mile races when I've done that. But secondly, with living in Kansas, I get really worried about the downhills in 100-mile races. I don't have a way to harden my legs up, harden my ankles up, harden my feet up. And so I try to do it with a 50 miler. Now that's not a great justification for doing it at 2 weeks before or 3 weeks before or a month before. But as I said, I've had good luck with doing it 2 weeks before, and that tapering actually goes back pretty far for me. Back when I was in high school cross country, college cross country, I felt like I actually never performed my best with the tapers that were structured by my coaches. And I always felt like for me personally, the gas was let off a little too long, and my legs didn't feel responsive the day of a race. And so I started looking through my records and whatnot and be like, gosh, like I have really good races in the middle of the seasons. And then like, I just don't hit that championship race as good as what I think I should. And so that thought right there started guiding me towards like, what if I didn't taper overly hard for ultra marathons and have a race 2 weeks before, get myself hardened. And so that's kind of how I led to that and been sticking
Cool.
with it ever since.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's awesome. Yeah, we all have our own thing that works.
that's absolutely right. And that's one of the great things about ultra running. The other great thing about ultra running, though, is I love the stories that are with an ultra running. Your story is, I honestly didn't even know your story until I watched the FKT video on the Colorado Trail and just hearing about your childhood and how that's kind of, affected you even long-term with body image issues and whatnot. And so I think with ultra running, it's just such a cool thing where people from all sorts of backgrounds can get going with it. And if their will is there, if their mental prowess is there, you can just do some awesome stuff like you're doing. So I wanted to hear about that with your childhood and what that was like and how that connects to your ultra running today.
Yeah. Yeah. So my childhood was kind of a big mess. In the Colorado Trail video, we talked mostly about how I grew up overweight. I grew up on a dairy farm out in a little community here in northern Utah. It's about 30 minutes to the west of Logan, and all there is out there is a bunch of farmers. And so, didn't have a lot of friends growing up just because I lived way out there. Like I didn't have like a typical neighborhood with a bunch of kids that I could go hang out with at night. Like it was just the people in my close community, and there wasn't a lot of people my age. Didn't have appreciation for hard work, even though I was a farmer. I did the bare minimum, and I complained a lot about it. And I think my parents, I have 4 older siblings, and we all grew up on this family farm. And all my older siblings, they're quite a bit older than me. The closest one is about 11 years older than me. And they always told me growing up that I was like the favorite, that they had to work way more than I had to work. And so I don't know if my parents just gave up on me because I complained so much, or they just, I don't know why I got lucky in that sense. But there was something that happened when I was a kid that I haven't really talked to a lot of people about. It was a type of abuse that I experienced from like outside of my family, from some friends. And through that, I just started like kind of having a lot of emotional damage, and I started eating my feelings away. And that led to my weight gain. If you look at my siblings, like there's no history of obesity in my family. Like I was kind of an anomaly in that sense. And so I just started eating my feelings away. I gained a bunch of weight, got called fat all the time, like typical middle school, junior high type stuff. Finally, it was about my 8th or ninth grade year. So it was my ninth grade year. So the way schooling works here in Utah, at least when I grew up, you have your elementary school, which is grades K through 5. You have your middle school, which is grades 6 through 7. And then you have a junior high, which is 8 through 9. And then high school, which is 10 through 12. Okay. And so when I was hitting my ninth grade year, getting ready to transition to high school, I remember thinking like, you know, if I'm getting made fun of by all these younger kids, like I was paranoid of what high school was going to be like. Like I was like, they're older, they're bigger, like the getting made fun of is going to be a lot worse. And so that's kind of what made me start looking into losing weight. It was the summer between 9th and 10th grade year. I started eating like the recommended portion sizes on everything. So like a box of cereal, that's the classic example I'll give. I got like a cup out every day, and I scooped out a cup of cereal, added it to the bowl, whatever the serving size of milk is. I poured that much milk in and poured that over my cereal. So ate all the recommended serving sizes, which is like small. I don't know how many people have tried following what's recommended on those, but like the portions are extremely small. And so I did that, and then I started running a mile a day. And that 3 month during summer break, I ended up losing, I was close to 200 pounds, and I dropped down into the 150s. So It was about 40 or 50 pounds that I lost that summer. And that's kind of, in a nutshell, how I grew up.
Yeah. Interesting. And with running, you have found so much confidence, so much identity. And how quickly or how gradually did that start occurring for you, where you started gaining a lot more confidence through running and, you know, gaining an identity for yourself? And then, I mean, it blows my mind going from what you just described to the magnificent accomplishments you have now and doing these distances that are just, wow, they're out there. And so, but there's a big bridge there, you know, and there's a lot of steps taken metaphorically too. And how did your confidence start building with running?
So, I mean, I would say I would throw out there that I still am working on that confidence a little bit. I do suffer a bit from imposter syndrome, just based off of like how I grew up, like small town, middle of nowhere. I was a nobody growing up, and like all of a sudden, you know, being on podcasts, having that documentary made, like all that stuff is just like still pretty surreal for me. And a lot of times I just like feel inadequate. But so, yeah, I still struggle with confidence, but it is something that's improved quite a bit since when I was in high school. But so for me, like, so once I lost weight in high school, I kind of put running on the shelf. Like, I didn't like it. I just did it to lose weight. And so what I ended up doing was I joined the football team. I just wanted to be cool. Like, I grew up like having not a lot of friends, like not a lot of popularity. And like in high school, the cool thing to do is be on the football team, even though I had no passion for football. And so I joined football. I didn't play at all. Like, I rode the bench, and that was because I didn't put in a lot of effort or work. Like, I avoided the big kids at practice. I didn't want to get smothered by them. I didn't train that hard. I avoided a lot of stuff. Like, I just wanted the recognition of being on the football team. And then part of football was there was a requirement to do track. And so I did do track. I did the javelin, and then I did the 3,200. And I guess, like, even though I hated running, like, it was just inside of me that like distance was my thing. Like, it doesn't make sense when I talk to people about it. Like, I always get asked, like, you hated running, but you picked the 3,200.
Right.
And I'm just like, yeah, I don't know why I did. I guess like there was something in me where I was just like, this is going to be my thing one day.
Yeah.
But yeah, so once high school was out, I just stopped. I stopped exercising. I gained a little bit of weight back. I served a service mission for my church for a couple of years. When I was on my mission, I started developing some back problems, and my like the leader of all of us youth out there, he had back problems too. And he told me that he recommended that I just try running a mile a day, that movement would help activate my back and keep it loose and whatever, engage my core. And so I started running a mile a day, which did help with my back. I got home from my mission and I just kept running a couple miles a day for my back. Ended up going to Utah State University, which is up here in Logan. And I had this goal, like I wanted to get my college paid for. I didn't want to pay for it myself. And so in my head, I was just like, you know what, I'm going to try to train to go on to walk onto the track team. Like hopefully I can get myself fit enough and fast enough to be able to like get some kind of scholarship. So started training, and shortly after I started training, I broke my back in a skiing accident up here.
Oh, wow.
I shattered, it was my L1 vertebrae. And so I ended up getting surgery. They took out part of my hip bone, fused it to my spine. To this day, I still have some rods and screws in my back. So that experience kind of put me in a situation where the doctor, the surgeon, he told me that I was going to be in bed for months to a year because it was a pretty bad accident and a pretty intensive surgery. So he recommended that I like defer my college classes for a full year. I ended up losing my job. I moved out of my college dorm back home with my parents so they could take care of me, basically. I had to use a walker.
Wow.
But long story short, that year projected recovery only ended up taking a few weeks. I actually ended up running, it was just over 3 weeks after my surgery. And wow. I ended up signing up for a 10K, running a 10K, which was about 6 to 7 weeks after my surgery. And like before I knew it, it was 2.5 months post surgery, and I was like running again. I was fine. I felt fine. I didn't have a job. I had to defer my college classes for a year. There was like no way to reverse that. All my friends were in college, so like basically I had nothing to do with my days. So it consisted of like sleeping until noon, waking up, going and running 10 to 15 miles, then going to the gym and lifting weights for a couple hours, and then going home with my friends and either playing Xbox, watching Netflix, staying up till 2 in the morning, and then sleeping until noon the next day, and just kind of repeat. And so that, like, it's crazy. Like the breaking my back sucked. It was a terrible experience, but like the way everything played out, like that experience is like what put me in a position where I had nothing to do. So I just started running all the time and getting faster and getting stronger, and just realized I had a love for the long distance, learned about ultra running, signed up for my first ultra marathon. And that's kind of how it all started, which I guess doesn't really necessarily answer your question.
Well, that's okay. That's okay. But one of the things that I loved about that story was maybe the started showing your resilient nature. And going through, and as I was preparing for today's episode, I reread all of your Instagram posts for this past year for 2022, and resilience came up. Yeah, no, I'm prepared. Resilience came up a number of times in your posts, and I love that. And I was like, man, I bet Mike probably brings that to his coaching, and it's something that it's part of ultra running. And ultra running, first off, is yes, it's physical, but the mental component of it is large, very large, and to maybe a much higher proportion than the physical component. But during an ultra marathon, especially if you're doing, and I've never run a race longer than 100 miles, but even during 100 miles, there's so many downturns, and there's like, we kind of jokingly will say, oh, I went through death like 5 or 6 times that race. But how do you, for say a 240 mile race or 200 mile race, how do you prepare to be resilient going into those races?
That's a good question. I think, personally, I feel like resilience requires a lot of just natural, like, grittiness. Like, it's just in your nature to, like, push through hard things. Not saying, like, if it's not in your nature that you can't tweak some things and work on it and become resilient. But, so, like, the realization that I made this past year about resilience, and I think, like, a lot of ultra runners need to study resilience, because one of the most common things that I see, I don't know if everybody sees it, but like when somebody DNFs an ultra, there's usually like a time where you just feel pretty bad and pretty worthless. You regret your decision. You wonder what you could have done differently. You feel like you gave up. And it like the times I've DNF'd, which with the Arizona Trail has now been 3 times throughout my career. But like my DNFs, like I take it hard for like a month. Like it hurts. But as I studied resilience this year, so the whole reason I started talking about resilience on social is because I got invited. Do you know who Mike Glover is?
I don't, but I do remember the scene on him on a couple of your posts.
Okay. So he started a company. It's called Fieldcraft Survival. And he does like a lot of retreats. Like he did a resilient retreat pretty recently. Fieldcraft Survival focuses on providing people the tools and the things that they need to like survive in bad situations, basically. Okay. So like emergency preparedness. And so he invited me to come speak about resilience at one of these retreats. And through my studies, like, so the actual definition of resilience, and I haven't looked at it for a while, but like it uses the phrase bouncing back. And so like the actual definition implies that you have a setback. And like, you know, everybody, not everybody, but like a lot of people, like one of their, like resilience is an attribute that people shoot for. Like it's one of those qualities that like if you're a resilient person, you like that's something to be looked up to, basically. And so if you want to be a real resilient person, you need to realize that like in order to achieve that, there are going to be setbacks. And so that was probably like the biggest thing that helped me get over not completing the Arizona Trail, because it hurt like at first, like first couple of days, like I felt awful. Like all these people I coached came like from Boston, from Missouri, flew in. I had one guy I coached that brought a van down. He had a Sprinter decked out adventure van. Wow. Took 2 weeks off from work to come help me. My parents, my in-laws were watching the kids for us. Like so many people helped me, and like to not get to the finish, like it hurt. Like it hurt because I didn't do it, and it hurt because of all these people that came out to help me, and we didn't even get to the finish. So like it hurt for a couple of days, but once I like made that realization that it's okay to have those setbacks, that's what like builds you up to resiliency, then like that's okay, because that's part of the process. So I just think like a lot of ultra runners, people who get into things where they're trying to push their limits, see what's possible, like you need to accept that if you're in the game of pushing your limits, you're going to have setbacks. You're going to have races that you don't finish, and that doesn't mean you're a failure. That's just like one small piece or one big piece, however you want to look at it, to like getting you closer to becoming a resilient person. And so I just think that like there's not one solution to become resilient. It's just I feel like it's just something that you got to be aware of, that's a thing, that's an attribute. And like if you're just in the process like of always moving forward, always trying to break your limits, that like the resiliency is like it's going to come. Basically what I'm saying is ultra runners, they all have it in them. Like they're all resilient people. No one's going to try to do a 50K, a 50-mile, a 100-mile race if they already don't have a small piece of resiliency in them. So I just feel like it's there, it's in us. And through the process of working and pushing, like that just kind of becomes more unlocked. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it absolutely does. And I love how you started off with like, hey, you can't bounce back unless you have a setback. Like that's definitely there. But that also connected up to, I think you are able to, you're pushing your limits so much more than I ever have in my life. And it's amazing to see. And this is going to connect over to one of your quotes that I read on your website. And that is that comfort is a waste of potential. And I think maybe wrapped up in that quote of comfort is a waste of potential is maybe a little bit of resiliency. Because if you're going to push your limits, you're going to have setbacks. You're not going to do it, 100% successfully every single time. And so you need to bounce back, like you said. But can you also, though, kind of dive into that quote a little bit? Comfort is a waste of potential, and just kind of hear about where that came from and how that is practiced.
Yeah, so I actually first heard that from, so he's called my mission president, the person that was over like the mission where I served for my church. And that was something that he used all the time. And like, for those who don't know what a mission is, like at least in the church that I grew up in, like it's a 2-year thing. You get sent to somewhere that's typically pretty far from home. So I grew up here in northern Utah, and I went to Toronto, Canada for my mission. So, across the country, in a different country, actually, technically. So you're out there by yourself, no family, no friends. Like you meet people there who came there to serve a mission as well, and you work together to help people out. But like you're just basically a stranger in a foreign land. And so there's a lot of moments that's hard. You want to go home, you miss your family, you miss just doing 19-year-old, 20-year-old stuff. You don't watch movies while you're out there. So like all the movies that came out from 2009 to 2011, which is when I served my mission, like I didn't see any of those movies. Like you're literally out there reading the Bible and teaching people about the Bible, and then just doing service from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. And so that was a phrase that he used a lot to help us, because like, that we're all struggling and questioning if we made the right choice to go and do this. And so once he started using that phrase, it really started to settle in with me. It really helped me to focus and to like realize like, this is why I'm out here. Of course, I'm going to be more comfortable at home, but like the amount of growth that I'm experiencing as a person right now, because of how uncomfortable I am living in Toronto, Canada, basically all by myself, like the amount of growth I'm going to experience is something that I can't get anywhere else as a 19 and 20-year-old. And so that's where I first heard the quote, and the fact that it just like really shaped those 2 years for me. Like it's just something that I held on to for most of my life. And just, as I became a coach, and as I started to get a following on social media, like I tried finding something that was me, my thing, kind of like, you know who Cam Haynes is?
I do not.
You do not? Oh, okay. Check him out. He's got like over 1 million followers. He's friends with David Goggins, Joe Rogan. But he has this slogan that's called like, keep hammering. Like after every post, he like puts up the hammer emojis and just says like, keep hammering. That's a sign for keep hammering. And so like, I was just like, I strongly believe that getting uncomfortable is a good thing, that we're too comfortable as a society. And so I just kind of started leaning into that quote that I learned from my mission president. And now I just say it all the time and try to teach people that it's a good thing to get uncomfortable, that that's where the growth comes from. And that's really why we do ultra running. Like, I mean, we all know it sucks at times. Like the joke that everybody makes about how like, the first 2 days after a race, like you swear off running, you're done forever. And then like 2 days later, you're back on ultra sign up looking for the next race, because like we deep down, we love getting uncomfortable, and that's why we keep doing it. So I'm just trying to like make that more aware for everybody. Like this is a good thing, and this is how we're growing.
Yeah, no, I love that explanation. I love that, growth comes from getting uncomfortable. And I also wanted to touch on, I have Matt Van Horn. I remember I'd go running with him, and I would sing some song out loud or something while we're running down the trail. I'm like, hey, Matt, do you know that song? I'm like, Brian, I don't know that song. That song came out probably when I was on my mission.
Yep.
So I've definitely heard that from other people too. So doing your races though, man, you get so uncomfortable. One of the things that I don't have a big practice with, which you do have a big practice with, is getting uncomfortable with lack of sleep. And I know that you said with your Colorado FKT, you pretty much didn't sleep at all. I mean, I think you did like, how much sleep did you get over your Colorado FKT?
It was just shy of 5 hours.
Just shy of 5 hours. Yeah, that's
basically
wild.
Ended up being 45 minutes a night.
Jeez. And that was, and your FKT was 7 days, and was it like 13, 14 hours or something like that?
Yeah, 7 days, 13-ish hours. Yeah.
Yeah, that's just wild. And so I know that like watching that video, man, like you were just a walking zombie through it, and it was really, really uncomfortable. And so my question is, because I don't have a background of getting uncomfortable from lack of sleep, what is that like? I mean, there's got to be hallucinations. There's got to be like your mind starts wandering. How do you overcome that just big amount of discomfort?
Well, so I think that the reason I do good on little sleep is because I grew up as a farmer. Even though I didn't do as much as my siblings, like I still had some pretty extensive stuff to do. And so like, you know, especially as I got into, so I had to get up so the way farming works, you have to milk the cows 2 or 3 times a day. And our farm, we did it 2 times a day. So and it was every 12 hours. So basically we'd wake up at 1 a.m. and then go to the farm, round the cows up, and we'd milk the cows from 2 a.m. to about 5 a.m. And then in the summer, especially, summers are busy because you got crops too. And so like my summers consisted of waking up at 1, milking from 2 to 5, hopping on the 4-wheeler, going into the field, moving pipe before the sun came up, going home and eating breakfast, and then going right back out to the field, getting in a tractor, cutting hay, raking hay, baling hay, loading the hay, putting it in the sheds. And like you do 3 or 4 crops every summer. And so like, that's just a continuous cycle. And then like, you know, after finishing the hay for the day, going right back to the farm and milking cows again from 2 to 5. Sometimes you had more pipe to go move after that. So, you know, basically the whole day was gone. Also football practice. I had to start throwing in football practice when I got into high school.
Wow.
Living a social life, being out with my friends. So like there's some days I'd be out till midnight with my friends. And then I'd hop in my car, drive home, grab a 45 ounce of Mountain Dew, basically just sit on my couch, sipping Mountain Dew for 20 minutes till my dad woke up, then go up to the farm and repeat for the next day. And so
wow.
I believe that carried over into like, I can just function off of little sleep. I feel like as I'm getting older though, that like threshold is dropping a little bit, but, so for me, that's just like, I can function that way, but if you get too sleep deprived, it can get kind of, dangerous. But yeah, you hallucinate. A lot of times you see things that you know are hallucinations, but so like in the Colorado Trail video, I don't know if you remember the monkeys riding a 4-wheeler. We talk about that in there.
No, I don't remember that.
So yeah, I was hiking. I looked up and I saw like clear as day, right in the middle of the trail, there was a 4-wheeler and there was 2 monkeys in astronaut suits looking at me coming at them. And so I stopped and I was just like, that's not real. I know that's not real, but I don't know what that really is. And as I got closer to it, it ended up just being some trees and some bushes, and it just like somehow formed together in my mind and made that hallucination. So most of the time you're seeing things that you know aren't real, but you just have no idea what you're really seeing. But there has been a few times when like the sleep deprivation kicks in so much where like I like flat out go to a different world. Like the 2 that stick out the most to me is my legs started talking to me. And this was in the Tahoe 200 a couple years ago, but they started talking to me, and they weren't my legs, but they were my dad's legs.
Oh, interesting.
And so like somehow the lower half of my body turned into my dad, and they were complaining about being tired. And I started to feel bad that I was making my dad's legs hurt so much. So I got my hiking poles, put them under my arms like crutches, and I started like limping to give my dad's legs a break. So like I flat out changed. I stopped running, I stopped power hiking, and I started limping with one leg in the air to give my dad's leg a break.
That's hardcore.
Yeah. And then like shortly after that, so this was all on the same night at the Tahoe 200, like I just kind of stopped and I was like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? Like, this is not real. And so like I finally snapped out of it and I started going. And then the next thing that happened was that there was a time portal in the middle of the trail. And no matter if I tried going around it, like I would walk way off the trail through the trees to avoid this time portal, but like instantly it would jump over to where I was and I'd go into the time portal and it would kick me back 2 miles on the trail. And so in my head, everything was looking the same. Even though I was moving forward, in my head I wasn't. I was running in this circle, the same section of trail because it looked so familiar. And I started getting frustrated because I couldn't progress. Like at the last aid station I just passed at the time, who was first place. And so I just moved into first place. Second place, I didn't know how close he was behind me, but I was just getting so frustrated because I was stuck in this time portal. I was worried that he wasn't stuck in the time portal and that he passed me. And so I finally just like laid down, took a 5-minute nap, and then that was just enough to reset my head, and I was able to keep going to the finish. Just a 5-minute nap. That's all I slept for that race, and it was enough to reset my head.
Jeez. And did you end up winning that race?
Yeah, it was about by 2 or 3 hours.
Okay, wow, that's just amazing. And so when you take these little micro naps and you're like, okay, like my mind is wigging out, my body's hurting a little bit here. How do you wake yourself up? I mean, like I could, if I'm that tired and I set my phone alarm for 5 minutes, there's a possibility I won't even hear the alarm.
Well, there we go again. That goes back to me being a bad sleeper because like just at my house in my day-to-day life, sleeping at night, I have to have a box fan on. A lot of nights I have to have earplugs in. I have this gummy that I take that's loaded with CBG and CBD to help ease my mind. Like I just can't turn my head off. And so just like if I didn't have a box fan on and if I didn't have earplugs in, my wife breathing, not even snoring, just her breathing would keep me up. Wow. And so such a light sleeper, like there's never been a time that my alarm, usually I wake up before my alarm goes off, like in my day to day. But like the few times in my life that I have actually gotten into a deep enough sleep and my alarm's gone off, like it wakes me up instantly. It freaks me out. My heart rate starts going. And so I just know that's nothing I have to worry about.
Yeah. So I'm similar in a little bit of that, but also not so much. So I have a hard time falling asleep at night. And I do believe in taking a little CBD gummy. I do it myself. It helps me a bunch. And I throw on 2 fans at nighttime to help me with some noise. But once I fall asleep, I can slumber. So that's where I'm different, is I can slumber. But gosh, like going back to your childhood and just hearing about, you were already training to be uncomfortable in terms of sleep. And you already started to become comfortable with lack of sleep. And during my teenage years, like I got a lot of sleep. I did not have the upbringing that you had. And so during your Colorado Trail FKT, you didn't get much sleep. How are you going to structure your sleep habits for your Arizona Trail FKT attempt?
Yeah, so that was one of my biggest mistakes I made with the Arizona Trail. So me and Courtney DeWalter, we talked a little bit after the Colorado Trail. So she was the one that actually got me to do the Colorado Trail. I went out after it shortly after her experience a couple years ago where she ended up having to go to the hospital for her blood level. Her blood oxygen got way too low. But she was the one that actually encouraged me to go after it. So after I completed it and got the FKT, we chatted a little bit on the phone. And both her and I agree that the Colorado Trail is actually just shy of 500 miles.
Sorry about that. Yeah, it's okay. 567 earlier.
Yeah, it's actually like 480-ish or something like that.
Okay.
And so me and her both agree that the Colorado Trail was just short enough that you can get away with pushing the boundaries on sleep a little bit. And I knew that going into the Arizona Trail. So I started, I instantly at the Arizona Trail, I prioritized sleep because I knew there was no way I was going to survive 45 minutes a night for 12 days. That's what the FKT is for the Colorado Trail. Oh, 13 days, 12 days was my goal. But, so yeah, I made it a point to sleep 5 to 6 hours a night the first few nights of the Arizona Trail. And then my mistake was I made daily mileage goals, which was pretty aggressive. It was to beat the old FKT by over 24 hours. And so by night 4 or so, I started to get off of my daily mileage goals, which again, there's a huge buffer. It was 24 hours of leeway with my mileage goals, but that still freaked me out. And so it was night 4 or so, I ended up pushing through the night to catch back up on my mileage, which I think I might have been fine as I replay it in my head. But the thing that really messed me up is I didn't look at the next day. The next day, the way the trail was broken up, when it got to nighttime, I was going to have to go through the night again because I couldn't see my crew during that section. There was no crew access. And so I ended up going 2 nights in a row without sleeping in the Arizona Trail. And that's like when things really started to fall apart for me. And so going back to it, like I'm going to make it a point. I'm not going to have daily mileage goals. I'm just going to make it a point to wrap up every night between 11 and 12:30 and sleep till 5 or 5:30 the next day. Prioritize sleep, get 5 to 6 hours every night those first few nights. Do that till night 9 maybe, and then like judging where I'm going to be at in terms of what the FKT is and what I would have left, I might start pushing through the night at that time, because I do believe between getting closer to the finish, like only having 2 or 3 nights left, the excitement of potentially getting the FKT, depending on where I'm at and my mileage, like I feel like all of that will help rejuvenate me and like help me push the boundaries of sleep a little bit. And so that's how I'm approaching it this time around. Like no pushing through the night till maybe night 9 or so, and then just really trying to lay it down and push the boundary on sleep to hopefully get the FKT at that point.
Yeah, I think that seems like a great plan, honestly. Like, keep it, realistic for 9 days and then see where you're at that point, and the excitement of getting close to the FKT, getting close to the finish. And also knowing that, kind of like what you said about the Colorado trails, it's just short enough that you don't really need to worry about your sleep. And so it's almost like that type of concept can be applied at almost getting close to the end of the Arizona trail, where it's like, you only got 2 or 3 days left. Let's push this. Let's get this thing. Let's get it by 24 hours. So with the with the Arizona trail, how do you choose which direction? Are you going to go northbound or southbound?
So I'm going to go in March, which means I would have to go northbound because there's still going to be snow up at the Grand Canyon area. Do you know who String Bean is?
I don't, but is String Bean the one? I think I remember String Bean from one of your posts. Is String Bean the one with the FKT currently?
Yeah. Joe McConaughey, I think that's how you say his last name.
Okay.
He has a documentary out. It's called Racing Arizona. It's free on YouTube. I'd recommend checking it out. But
yeah, I'll write it down.
Yeah, he set the FKT in the spring, I want to say 2021, and that year there was quite a bit of snow up north. I can't remember when he started, but yeah, he had to have his crew drive ahead to the next checkpoint, and I don't know if they threw on snowshoes, I can't remember, or just their running shoes, and they'd go back to him to pack the trail down and then continue on with him once they met and then keep going. But there's quite a bit of snow up north. So basically, there's 2 different things here. So the pro of going in the fall, which is when I last tried to do it, is no snow. But the negative is, so Arizona is backwards of like most places, like Utah, for example. Most people are hiding indoors in the winter, not doing a lot of physical activity. Sun comes out, snow starts to melt, and we're just out pounding the trails all summer. So our trails up here, have you ever done the Bear 100 before?
I have, yeah.
I'm sure, I don't know if you remember, but the trails are amazing. Like hardly any overgrowth, they're butter. It's easy to run downhill, not rocky or technical. And that's because we're just out here all summer. We have a good community out here that does trail work. And so like our trails are really maintained out here. Arizona, though, because it's so hot in the summer, people are indoors in the summer, not using the trails as much. And so that's when they start to get overgrown. And I had to deal a lot with that when I went out in the fall. Like my legs got way destroyed. Like they have these stupid like cat claw things that just like,
I know about those.
Overgrows the trail, and no matter how much you try to avoid it, it just tears your legs, tears your shorts up.
They're the worst. I hate when you like try to pass through them. You can't, like, you got to like almost step backwards. If you like try to push through it, just like holds on to you. It's almost like you have to step back and somehow go around it. Like I hate cat claws. Like they are evil.
Well, yeah, and it's because they're hooked. So it's like they get in your skin, they go with you, and they just rip you open. And so the fall time, the overgrowth sucks. And that was actually a big reason I ended up dropping. Where I dropped, there's a community, I think it's called Summer Haven, at the top of Mount Lemon. Like there's houses up there, restaurants, and a road. And I was running down this road, like I had a 2-mile section. I was running downhill, super buttery, like no rocks or anything to worry about because it's pavement. And I could barely maintain a 20-minute mile. I was just so exhausted. And I just knew what was ahead of me in terms of overgrowth. And I was just like, there's no way. If I can't do under 20-minute miles on the road downhill, there's no way I'm going to be out here for weeks still based off of like how overgrown the trail is. So that's the negative to the fall. The positive of going in the spring is this is the time of year they're out there, they're running, they're hiking, they're doing trail maintenance. So the overgrowth is going to be a lot less intense. Not to mention too, like going into the fall, they're just coming out of monsoon season in Arizona. And so that also adds to the overgrowth. And so between them using the trails, between coming out of winter, there's going to be a lot less overgrowth in the spring. But the negative is you have to really time when you start, because if you start too late, it's going to get way too hot down south in Tucson. And if you start too early, the snow up north is just going to be, it's not going to be passable. And so that's the negative of waiting till the spring. But me, I live in Utah. I'm trudging through the snow all winter.
You're used to it,
I snowshoe, I backcountry ski. I went for a run yesterday before the snowplows got out after a big storm. And so I was just running through snow on the road. So for me, I feel like I have a bigger advantage of dealing with the snow and not having to deal with the overgrowth, because I never have to deal with overgrowth here, but I do have to deal with snow. So I'm hoping that it helps me a little bit.
Yeah, and I feel like you've done so much in snow. The overgrowth, that type of overgrowth too, that specific type it's unrelenting, and it definitely can wear you down. And I know that back in like 2008 or so, I went backpacking in the Superstition Wilderness, and I think does the Arizona Trail go through the Superstition Wilderness?
Oh, I hated that section.
Yeah, I went backpacking for 4 nights. I just went out on a little solo trip, and dude, I came back, my legs were ripped to shreds because there was so much cat claws, and it looked bad. Like I remember I was visiting my parents. My parents live in the Phoenix area, and so I came into their place, borrowed a car, went backpacking for 4 nights, and then came back. And my parents, like, I got back and they're looking at my legs, and I'm like, dude, you went to battle. Like, what did you do? And I was like, it's the dang cat claws. They suck.
It's the superstitions. I don't swear, but I definitely developed a swearing habit in that section.
Yeah, the Superstition Wilderness can get everyone talking some colorful language.
Yeah. No, I think the section that I did, so there was the Mazeltal Wilderness, the Superstition Wilderness, and I think there was the three or the 4 Peaks Wilderness.
I know what you're talking about. I think it's 4 Peaks, but I'd have to double check.
Yeah. The superstitions were the worst. Like it was a 50K that I had to do on my own between crew sections. We were planning like 9 hours because the elevation profile wasn't wild for that section. But like, I got to send you videos, dude. Like,
yeah, definitely.
Like I was legit just walking, looking at my Koros because I had the map uploaded to it. And I was legit just walking like, okay, I am on the trail according to my watch. Like there's no trail here. I can't see a trail anywhere, but like this is what it says, so I'm just going to follow my watch. But like that 32-mile section, which I projected to be that it should have taken me 9 hours, ended up taking me almost 17 hours.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Oh man.
I was just walking, like it was awful.
What's up with the Superstition Wilderness and the trails disappearing like that? Because that's happened to me in the Superstition Wilderness on that trip in 2008 when I was backpacking. I got totally turned around because I was walking on a new trail and then it disappeared. And at the time, I didn't have any GPS or anything, so I'm just like looking at my maps and trying to read contour lines and trying to guess where I'm at. And I ended up having to. I remember that night I couldn't find where the trail was. I'd been walking on a trail all day, and it came to be nighttime, and I couldn't find the trail anymore. So I was like, okay, I don't know where I'm at. I'm just going to plop down. I'm going to sleep, and I have the whole next day to find a freaking trail. And, I mean, I wasn't that far off from it, but I couldn't believe that. I thought I was on like a main primary trail in the Superstition Wilderness, and here it's just disappearing. And so I've actually never talked with anyone else about that. So to hear that you're on this trail that's disappearing, it's got cat claws. I'm like, oh my gosh, I dealt with this too.
It's awful, dude. I would much rather trudge through snow than deal with that again.
Right. And so do you expect, and it is awful, and I would I'd vote for the snow as well. Is the snow forecast to be most thick on the north rim of the Grand Canyon?
Yes. Yeah, basically the final. Well, actually no, because I think Flagstaff on is when I might have to deal with snow. Because Flagstaff's pretty high, and like even so like when I did it north to south a couple months ago, it was just coming out of monsoon season, so like basically the border of Utah to Flagstaff was just like a muddy mess. Like it was awful. And so like the nasty mud that sticks to your shoes adds 5 to 10 pounds on each foot. Like it was just unrelentless. Like as I replay, like, every time I've been on a few podcasts since not finishing the Arizona Trail, and just every time I talk about it, like I just get so like frustrated because like it just felt like nothing let up for me. Like Utah to Flagstaff, I had to deal with the mud. And so, well, and also too, before I started the Arizona Trail, it was about 3 or so weeks before I sprained my ankle pretty bad. And so,
yeah, I saw that.
I did a lot. Like I threw the kitchen sink at that thing, and so going into it, it healed up pretty well. But I do feel like I was compensating a lot still for the weak muscle in my ankle. And so, like between the compensating and between the mud, like I just had severe. It was either shin or calf pain. It just kept repeating, like kept switching, alternating. And so, you know, between the mud, between the shin and the calf pain, I finally got past Flagstaff, and I had like a day or two of like good running where I was like, this is awesome. But then after those 2 days, like I hit the Mazel Talls, I hit the Four Peaks, I hit the Superstitions, and like it was just all overgrown, all hard. Like there was 3 or 4 sections I thought would take me 6 to 7 hours, which ended up taking over 12 hours just because of how overgrown it was. So it just felt like everything was just like going against me, like in terms of like the elements. But so just replaying that in my head with how muddy it was from Flagstaff to the Utah border, I'm imagining that section is where I'm going to have to worry most about the snow too.
Yeah, yeah. Well, what I love about rehearing this story from, was it October that you did the attempt? Yeah. So what I love, though, about all this is you're like, you tried it in October and it didn't stop you, you know? And I think this goes right back to the start of our conversation. Like this is like bouncing back, being resilient, getting after this really hardcore endeavor. I mean, it's funny to talk about how the Colorado Trail at 480 miles is considered a little bit short. And now it's something that's around 800 miles, and it's, man, is it hardcore. And I love, though, that there's a lot of people out there that would go after an FKT attempt. It doesn't go so well. They get sour, they get bitter, and they don't go after it again. And I love that you're getting after it. And I think like I think you've been doing it your whole life now. And it's just something that you're used to.
Well, to go with that too, and so my buddy Ben Light, like if he listens to this, I don't ever want him to feel bad. But like the whole thing that we did, it was very much his style. Like he's very well known for putting together these crazy hard, unique projects. And he's very good at getting people like sponsors to give him support, to send out a film crew and make a short documentary about it. Like that's his thing. He's great at it. Me, that's not my thing. Like so for the Colorado Trail, for example, like I decided to go after it and went after it 2 weeks later. And
oh wow,
yeah,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so I was out training in the Uintas. It's a mountain range here in Utah. I was hoping to go after. There's an 85-mile route there. I was hoping to go after the FKT. Came out of the Uintas. There's no service up there. Came out, checked in on Courtney DeWalter's status on her Colorado Trail thing, and that's when I found out she was in the hospital. And so I ended up texting her saying, hey, sorry this happened. Good luck with recovery. She gets back to me, like she doesn't even mention what she was going through. She just said, hey, this trail's got your name all over it. Go get it done. And so like
nice.
that whole drive home, I was just like, I wonder if I could do that. And like at the time, that was the year of COVID. It was 2020. I lost my job in April. I didn't have a job that whole year. And so I got home from that, and I just like, I texted Ben, and I was like, hey, He's my crew chief. Ben and my wife are my crew chiefs. Like I don't want my wife to think that she's not my crew chief. But I messaged him. I was just like, hey, thinking of doing this. If I did it, when would work for you to come out and help, assuming you want to come out and help? And he picked a weekend, which happened to be 2.5, 3 weeks after, like later.
Wow.
And then I went into my house and was like, hey, Sarah, like, never done an FKT before, but, you know, I kind of want to try it. And this is the time to try it because I don't have a job to hold me back or anything. And so, yeah, 2.5 weeks later, we went out there and went after it. The only reason the documentary was made on it is because Matt Van Horn is my friend, and he was a one-man show. Like, there wasn't a huge crew. So it was very low-key. There was no hype. I showed up and did it. I made a post the day before. I was like, hey, I'm out here and I'm doing this. Like, wish me luck. And then I made a post afterwards saying, hey, I got it. Thanks for all the help. And that was it. Arizona Trail, though, like we had to talk to sponsors before. Like, all the time that I wanted to plan and train was worried about getting people to sponsor us, finding a film crew, the gamification of it. Like, we wanted to make it like kind of like a joke, like an MMA style type thing. Like, we made these posters.
I thought that was cool.
Yeah, it's cool. It's just not me though.
Yeah. Okay.
So like we made all these posters, like of us just like kind of like folding our arms and staring at each other, all pissed off, which is completely against our personalities. And then we did like this live coin toss at one of our sponsors, where like we did like a weigh in, like it was just very just like not taking ourselves seriously kind of a thing. And then Aravipa, Jamil Curry and Aravipa, they hopped on board and wanted to like do those daily updates on their YouTube channel. Did you see those?
I maybe saw one or two of them. Okay. They're ringing a bell.
So yeah, they did daily updates where like they zoomed in on a map of the trail, like our tracking map showed everybody like where I was, where Ben was. They went to like, they wanted us to do social media posts. And so like they would go to my Strava, they would go to my Instagram and just like go through the posts, talk about how I'm feeling. And then they sent us links that we like every morning from 9 to 10, or I think that's what it was. If we had service, they wanted us to click on that link and check in from the trail with our phone and share how we were. And so like the build up to it, the daily check-ins, like all that attention kind of freaked me out. I don't like it. And so to be honest, like the build up to the Arizona Trail, I wasn't really that excited for it. I felt like it was Ben's project that I was tagging along for. But now, so like a big reason I didn't finish the Arizona Trail is I knew if I finished it. So take another back step, sorry. But like, basically, when I got to mile 550 or something, like we knew the FKT was out. Like I was just going at a pace. Like if I was fresh, I would have been able to do it. But like the way I was moving, as tired as I was, the FKT was out. And so at that point, it became finish just to finish or quit and go home. And so at first, I was just like, all right, let's finish to finish. Like I want to at least finish. But as I moved along, as I started to slow down, as I started to feel unsatisfied, I knew that finishing just to finish, I wouldn't have been completely satisfied. And I also knew the chances of me never coming back would be very high because I finished it. And so when I was like all the things I was trying to weigh out in terms of like pros and cons of stopping and not stopping, like the biggest thing that stuck out to me is like, I want to come back and finish this in a capacity that I know I am capable of. And the biggest chance of me coming back is just not finishing it because there's going to be that chip in my shoulder that I got to fix. And so,
okay, I like it.
Pulled the plug, quit. And like, as soon as I quit, like 2 or 3 days later, I was just like, okay, I'm coming back in the spring. I'm going to do this my way. Like no gamification of it. I'm not going to tell people like the exact date I'm starting. I'm going to do it very Colorado Trail oriented. Like, hey, here's a picture of here's a picture of the Arizona Trail. I'm going to start this thing tomorrow. Wish me luck. And then just go out and do it on my own thing. And like, doing it on my own, doing it in my own style. Like I'm a lot more hungry for this than I was for the last attempt, if that makes sense.
It absolutely makes sense. Absolutely makes sense. And go back to the start of what you mentioned, your video on YouTube for the Colorado Trail FKT, it seems like you have a big crew there. Like you got plenty of people supporting you. It seemed like Matt Van Horn doing the videography had a crew with him. But now connecting that type of style that fits your personality, fits you, to a gamification, does that end up almost like kind of changing I don't know if expectations is the right word, but it would change my mental state. And I was trying to relate to this, and I really honestly can't relate to it because I've never done anything this long. But I know that going into 100-mile ultramarathons, I actually feel like I perform better if I'm able to lower and kind of control my expectations. Because what will end up happening when I have like really big expectations, or I'm out to try to do this or that or whatever, what will happen to me sometimes is I will overcompensate during downtime. So if I'm not feeling well or whatever, I might push myself faster through being with my crew. And that is a critical time. I need to take care of myself. I need to be able to bounce back. I need to be thinking long-term. But if I'm like really got like all this like extra pressure on me, I might push a little bit faster through with my crew, not get as much nutrients, not get as much electrolytes, water, whatever it is. And then I end up not feeling as well for the rest of it. And so I wonder if that gamification just kind of was changing things up psychologically too. It's not your style, and that's totally fine. Everyone's got their style in approaching this stuff. But I feel like I'm kind of like similar to your camp, where I like to just kind of keep it my style, kind of slow or small, and not as big. But I mean, I think like Ben Light's stuff, like I think like honestly, I thought it was pretty cool. I know it doesn't, necessarily fit my personality, maybe it doesn't fit your personality, but I thought it was honestly really cool for the sport. And I mentioned that earlier on. And I think Ben, with his big projects that he's doing, you're a part of him. I think it's really, really great for the sport. It's expanding the sport. The sport is still very young. It still has a lot of growth, and who knows what that growth is going to look like. But it shows all these different ways that, in my opinion, the community within ultra running is just amazing. I think I read a story of yours where, when you were trying the FKT on the Arizona Trail, String Bean, who owns the FKT, was like your biggest supporter out there and just rooting you on and whatnot. And so is String Bean are you going to invite String Bean out, or are you just going to keep it, too small? Just
keep it to me.
Yeah, nice.
No, I realized that. So it was in 2019, the year that I won all three of those 200s. That was the year I realized that I do way better kind of winging it, if that makes sense. I used to be very particular, like I made spreadsheets, typical of what you probably see with a lot of other runners, where it's like, here's the aid stations, here's my A goal times that I want to be into those aid stations, here's my B goal times, here's my C goal times, and then here's the lap time. And so I used to be very like particular in that way. 2019, I did Western States, and I ended up doing like 21 hours, which it's a respectable time, but it wasn't what I thought I could do. And I made a realization after that race that the first 30, 40 miles, things kind of went wrong. Like, I was having stomach issues. I was a little bit more tired than I should be. And so I ended up throwing a pity party and basically walking the rest, just because I was just so upset that things didn't go perfectly. Mm-hmm. And so when I finished that, I was just like, you know what? Realistically, I probably could have shaved 2 hours off of this time. But because I gave up mentally and just chose to walk, because I fell behind for the first 30 miles or whatever, like I just made the race so much longer than it could have been, because like I got inside my own head. And so going into the Bigfoot 200, which was a month and a half or so after Western, like I met with Ben, I met with my wife, and I was just like, hey, I don't want any idea on like what kind of pace that I'm on. Like I don't want, like I didn't make a spreadsheet for it. Like I apologize to Sarah, my wife. I was like, hey, I know these spreadsheets kind of help you out because it gives you an idea, but like I'm not going to make one because I don't want any idea. And so I was just running according to how I felt. I remember I went into the mile 42 aid station and I beat my crew to that aid station, just because that race, there's a lot of driving between aid stations. So I got to there before my crew, and a month and a half earlier, if it was at Western States, I would have freaked out because that was messing with my pace. But instead I took my shoes off, took my socks off, wiped my feet, I stretched, I ate, I talked to the volunteers, I had fun. And then my crew showed up about 30 to 40 minutes after I got there. And then I left. And
Nice.
so like I just kind of like just played it by feel, just took whatever came at me. I was a lot more loose. Like I let my mind just like not freak out about anything. I got to mile 90 and Ben was pacing me. Or sorry, not mile 90, mile 190. And or no, it was mile 170, sorry. So I still had about 50-ish miles to go because Bigfoot's almost 210 miles.
Okay.
So I finally get there. I'm in first place. I did have a goal at the back of my head. I wanted to get under 60 hours, but like I didn't make the spreadsheet to like help me get there. So anyway, so Ben's with me and I'm like, hey, Ben, I'm in first place. I'm almost at the finish. Like mentally, I'm okay to know where I'm at in the grand scheme of things. So like, am I on target to get under 60 hours? And Ben chuckled and he said, dude, if you like pick it up just a little bit, you might get under 50 hours. And I had no idea, none.
Whoa.
And so that I took that philosophy to all the rest of those 200s, like ran by feel, didn't make spreadsheets, took breaks when I needed to, took naps when I needed to. And like, I ended up shaving off so much time from my previous time doing those races. And so that was when I was just like, okay, my thing is winging it, not creating the spreadsheets, running by feel. And I feel like the whole Arizona Trail thing was just like very much back to how I used to be, making spreadsheets, doing the daily mileage, like all that kind of stuff, worrying about social media posts, worried about checking in, like a bunch of stuff that I usually don't do. And it's just not my thing. So I just got to go back and try it my way and see if that makes a difference.
Yeah. I that's how I do it myself. Is I don't overanalyze myself. I mean, like I put in good training. I know what my goals are, but I don't have stuff planned out, and I go by feel. And it took a while to get to that point, though. Like going by feel, like there's got to be a lot of mishaps to be able to do that, and a lot of experiences and whatnot, and mess ups, and then eventually start having some confidence in that. And that's kind of how I do it now. And it became, for me personally, a more enjoyable experience that way too. Just because I'm not as I don't get these like micro stresses going on during the race. I didn't like hit this or hit that, because the race is such a long thing, and especially with the races you do. I mean, it's, almost 1 mile at a time, 1 foot, 1 step at a time type of thing. And every mile is different. Every step's different. And there's always plenty of time to make up stuff too, when you do get behind.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's, I love that stuff. Well, Mike, I think we're getting close to wrapping up here. All this stuff is just, I'm just inspired by you. I think it's really cool what you do. I'm really honored and grateful that you came onto the show, shared these tremendous accomplishments, talked about how you get through them. I mean, I think I mentioned it earlier. I think we're probably in agreement about it, that ultra running, the mental component of it is so fascinating, and it's so much fun to explore that self of ourselves. And it's something that you have done at great depths. And I look forward to seeing what you have coming for years to come. I know that you've talked a little bit about maybe getting after the Appalachian Trail one year. I'd love to see you do that. I think it's just super cool. And I'm looking forward to seeing that race that you have coming up, and also the retreats and just the big projects that you have coming up. So really appreciate you coming on. I did want to mention your website again, which is lowcarb-runner.com. And I'm going to conclude this episode with playing, I'm going to do a screen share on the video end, and I apologize for those that are tuning in via audio. You can access the video of this on YouTube, Spotify, and some other places. I'm going to play the first about minute 30 of the Colorado Trail FKT that Mike set. And so we're going to put that on. And I just want to say one last time to Mike, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day. I'm really excited for you for the Arizona Trail. So sincerely, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, here we go.
All right, brother. Here we go. Good job, man. Good job. Nice.